I'm Jonathan Sabella. I was inspired as a kid by movie magic, everything from King Kong to Star Wars, dinosaurs to superheroes. Those inspirations set me on a path to study visual effects and help form me into the artist I am today. To date, I've been lucky enough to spend over a decade working on films, games, and VR. This is a place for me to delve into personal work, to connect with old friends and make new ones from the comfort of my home studio. This is VFX at home. Hey everyone, today I'm going to take this shot of Tom Holland and turn him into Spider-Man. I'll walk you through each step of the process, starting from just a sphere in Zbrush up to using one of my favorite VFX techniques that most movies use, but few know is happening behind the scenes. Let's jump right in. Okay, so let's start with why I decided to do this particular project. For me, it's one part fan art, one part demo. The idea started because I wanted to show the progression of a shot to final using what's called shot modeling or shot correctives. I've worked on several MCU films using this technique, and it's actually sometimes hard to show the work I've done because in the end it's nearly invisible. Without being able to show the process of development, it's hard to see how the shot has changed over time. Really, in my opinion, this aspect of finaling a shot is both my favorite part of the process as well as the secret sauce a lot of people don't realize is happening. Hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have a better idea of what I mean and what's going into nearly every frame of the films we love. That's the reason I wanted to do this demo, but the fan part of it is that I just love superheroes and I'm nostalgic for the times that I got to work on Spider-Man in the MCU so far. It's really a dream come true and I just enjoy it. I think this is maybe a digital equivalent of creators who like to make prop replicas and movie accurate costumes. I just genuinely enjoy the process and the craft.
Welcome to the Spider-Man Cartoon Maker, where your imagination is the real superhero.
So here I am in Zbrush. I've opened a sphere to start from and begun pushing and pulling out the shape of Spider-Man. On my second monitor, I have references including shots from the films and behind the scenes photos. I'm routinely looking over at these as you would in traditional life sculpting while I work. If you're watching this and you're just starting out your journey as an artist, something I would really encourage you to do is to study anatomy. It's foundational to this entire process, and it's something that will really help you in your career as you move forward. Working in the industry, I've been able to practice this in a myriad of different ways through self-study as well as actual in-production work. Currently, right now, I'm working as an art director for the world's largest surgical training platform, and there we cover lots and lots of anatomy in detail. In the past, I've even gone to cadaver dissections and things like that. So for me personally, anatomy is one of the most important things that you can invest in for your career as an artist. So I'm wrapping up the base form of the body here, and I will start using black and white to mask out areas of the suit pattern that I want to eventually, when I bring into Substance Painter, apply red and blue materials, as well as I'm going to use it for helping guide me when I'm building other elements of the suit like the black paneling, etc. This element of painting out this mask will take a bit of time, but it really ends up hugely helping the project along the way. Planning out ahead of time like this is very important and can help making the entire process smoother. With this, I can very early on have a good reference of where to create my additional geometry and a way to line up my color exactly to that established relationship. Here you can see me doing a rough blockout starting from a mask extraction for the web shooters. I use this technique sometimes to play with proportions, and then I use it as a template to model on top of when we jump over to Maya after this. Now we're in Maya, and I've brought that block-in mesh from Zbrush over and applied a material to display the mask I baked out onto auto UVs generated in Zbrush. You'll see me now starting to retopo and build some of the elements of the costume on top of the base form of the body. I'm largely using quad draw here after making the mesh live and using extrusions to add thickness to these meshes. Once that's done, I delete what isn't seen, like back faces. I've skipped ahead a bit in Maya and you can see all the final meshes built in the scene. I've gone ahead and properly UV unwrapped the character. When I apply this checker map, you'll notice that the elements that are intended to be the same material I've paid attention are all the same size ratio, so that when I apply tileable patterns, they all maintain their proper proportion and also their overall direction over the whole suit. What's on the screen now are spheres with base smart materials I created for both the red and blue fabrics. These are a mixture of tiling images I created in Photoshop along with custom height maps and pre-existing materials in Substance Painter. Before we move to the next step in the process, I just wanted to take a brief moment to thank you for watching. I hope you're enjoying this breakdown. I have a lot of content I plan to make into future episodes, and I have interviews planned with other industry professionals. Please like, subscribe, comment, and turn on notifications. It makes a big difference. Okay, back to Spider-Man. In Substance Painter now, I'll use that initial black and white mask we made at the start, now transfer to my clean UVs. I ended up with about 18 UDIMs total for the character. I'll apply the smart materials and then begin the process of drawing all the lines on the suit. This was by far the most time-intensive part. I wanted it to be accurate, so I did the line work in 3 separate passes. First, an overall thicker line with depth and a shinier roughness value. Then on top of that, I used a custom alpha with 2 slightly blurred circles I made in Photoshop. Set that to follow path and then drew the darker double lines on the thicker tracks, followed by another layer of single lines for the smaller connecting web lines. Here's the final result of that texture work in Substance Painter. Overall, I'm happy with how it turned out and how it was responding to the lighting. If I were to do very close-up shots, I could always go back in and do an even greater layer of detail on top of this. For this shot, I felt it was enough for what I needed to see in the final render. Throughout the process, I would often take the model and textures into Maya and do test renders to see how I felt it was looking in Arnold. In Maya, my lighting is pretty simple. I'm just using a single HDRI from HDRI Haven and an area light. For the next stage, I'm back in Maya creating the rig for the character. This is the last step I need before I can get the character in the shot, animated, and start the process of creating the corrective blend shapes this entire project has been leading up to for me. I ended up building in curve controls to help aid with easier animation. For this project, I'm doing the work of what would normally be multiple people in a production environment. It's a considerable amount of work, but very rewarding to get to the end result. Here I am loading up a plugin called Shapes for Maya that's available from a company called Brave Rabbit. Okay, so now it's time to talk about that secret work that's been happening in the background of all our favorite visual effects movies. You can see that when I move the character around, for instance, moving the arms up and down, it doesn't look super realistic. It ruins the illusion of this being a real person. What we can do now is add corrective blend shapes into the rig via joint-driven shapes, so every time the character does an action like raise its arms, we can tell the mesh a custom way to look in every position. Using what are called in-between shapes or combo shapes, we can also make effects like the scapula changing its angle. Here are some of the results of that rig corrective pass. I've added in things like wrinkles on the side of the neck when he turns his head, as well as shapes on his knees, and for when he pronates and supinates his arms. In production, there might not always be time to put these rig correctives in depending on how tight deadlines are. Often I've been on films where these aren't built in and we just have to sculpt them in shot by shot. Having them in the rig though is a luxury if you can, and allows for a little less work on the final shot sculpting phase. Okay, we're almost there. I've gone ahead and tracked the camera. You can use an old program called Voodoo, or programs like After Effects can do this as well. Once that's done, I export out TIFFs for each frame and load them into Maya as a sequence. This type of shot is called a match move, where you take the character, hand animate it to move along with the plate. I've had to work on a lot of shots like this in the past, especially when you might need in a shot to just replace part of a real person's clothing or costume. Now skipping forward a bit, I have the full shot animated. I can now start the process of shot sculpting the character to greatly improve its final look and feel. You can do this process through the normal blend shapes pipeline built into Maya, however I prefer the speed that the interface provided by the Shapes plugin offers. One downside to using the plugin is that if you want your shapes to affect multiple separate meshes, it can't. All the elements of your character need to be combined into one mesh, unless you want to load in each mesh separately and then make shapes for those. The standard blend shape path in Maya does allow for the shapes to affect separate meshes, so you have to pick and choose which is best for your project or character. Now I'm going to go through every 5 to 10 frames and sculpt fixes for different parts of the body in the sequence. The goal here is to, if possible, use the same shape as many times as you can if it still works down the line frames later. Ultimately, you could end up sculpting hundreds of shapes if it's a really complex shot. I've spent thousands of hours doing this on past movies. I love it because you really feel like you're making a difference to the final product, And also, when I was a kid, before 3D movies were a thing, the career I wanted was as a Disney animator, or a stop-motion animator. This process feels like a combination of keyframing in 2D mixed with dimensional sculpting, all things that I love. This process is so fun because you can add a lot of subtle details like breathing motions. Okay, let's take a look at the final results. Here's the original performance by Tom Holland. Here's what the animation would look like if we put no correctives at all. And lastly, here's the final result.
What they see on the screen is Spider-Man, but it's what I'm doing, if you know what I mean. What they see on the screen is Spider-Man, but it's what I'm doing, if you know what I mean.
That's it for today. Thanks everyone for watching. Hope you got something out of it. Please share with somebody who you think might be interested. Like, subscribe, turn on the notifications. Look forward to sharing another video with you soon. Thank you so much to my wife Leslie for shooting the initial video for the beginning of this and helping out so much, as well as supporting me both in my career and in my personal work. Bye!